Hi everyone, we're just going to wait for a couple more minutes and then get on board, so we'll get started shortly. Thank you. Hi everybody, I think we'll get started. Thank you all for joining our webinar today. Today it's going to be on team collaboration and market opportunities for service providers. Myself and Fazil Berkaya have been spending the last few months looking at the team collaboration market in depth, looking at really what can service providers do to launch these services, what are some of the key trends. And we thought we'd share this webinar with you guys just to take you through some of the top level findings that we came out of it. So without further ado, I'll get going. Just quickly, for those of you who don't know who we are, we're a research and consulting firm focused on the cloud communications industry. You would have seen a number of our numbers and reports coming up on the European market over the last few weeks. And seeing us speaking potentially around the world on different things. We work only really with service providers and the vendors. We have geographic reach across Europe and the US now, and try to bring together service providers at our cloud communications events, which many of you have attended as well. As you can see, we've worked in numerous countries and numerous different vendors and service providers, both on a consulting and research basis. So our background really is supported by this large ecosystem that we work within. Just a quick heads up on the report. So we've done this as a free webinar. There is also a white paper which is based on this, which goes into a lot more details into all of the different areas that we'll be touching on today. Throughout the year, we'll be releasing reports on all these different areas as well. So CPaaS and SD-WAN, mobile and FMC, contact center, obviously team collaboration has just come out, go-to-market strategy, so looking at who's been successful there, and how to offer international services. So throughout the year, we'll be running webinars, but the in-depth white papers will be available as well to our Insight package customers, and for sale as well for those who'd like to learn more about how these different services are evolving and how people are taking them to market and launching them successfully. In terms of our geographic reach as well, many of you saw we released our European reports last week, so touching on numerous different European countries. We covered the US in a research report earlier this year. In these reports, we go in depth into cloud communications industry, really looking at how they've grown over the last year, some of the key trends, who are the key operators in those markets, and looking down into forecasts going forward into the future as well at cloud adoption. So really interesting insights we come off there. We did a webinar last week, so if any of you are interested, please ping me and I'll send over the details for that as well. One other thing, for those of you based in France and or Spain, over the next month or so, on the 6th of November, we'll be hosting the Cloud Communication Summit in Paris, bringing together French telcos and operators, as well as a number of international providers as well, to really do in-depth look at the French market, really good opportunities to network with the industry there. And then 2 days after, we're taking that to Madrid, where we'll be doing exactly the same with the Spanish market. Both events are looking really good at the moment, so if you'd like to come along, please ping me and I'll send you further details. It's a great opportunity to learn about those markets and network with those people in those markets as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my co-host and colleague Fazil Berkaya, who is going to take us through our first bit on the cloud on the team collaboration market. So over to you, Fazil.
Thank you, Dom. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, perfect. So as the workplace of future is changing, and with cloud, more people are adopting flexible working and new ways to communicate. Cloud has managed to really provide enterprises with a great way of collaborating, and this is team collaboration. The team collaboration tools that this market is led by Slack. And they are increasingly becoming the new productivity and collaboration platforms. And if you think about it, PBX has never really been the actual productivity platform. It has only been a way to communicate communicate internally or externally. But what is team collaboration? I mean, it has many pillars. It could mean anything from just persistent messaging to to a range of pillars, including any task management to voice to conferencing, file sharing, or even more advanced stuff like artificial intelligence, bots, and contextual intelligence embedded into the pane of glass. When it comes to the motivations of why these solutions are becoming increasingly prevalent, for the end customer, first of all, the easy piece is the increased productivity, because through a single pane of glass, uh, enterprise workers are able to see and interact with multiple platforms, multiple cloud platforms. And through the API integrations, these are made seamless. Similar to any other cloud service, there's a decreased capex associated with those services, in addition to the common ease of managing cloud service, agility and flexibility, and obviously access to innovation before anything on premise can be installed. Another key motivations for procuring this through service providers for enterprises is that avoiding shadow IT, because today enterprises enterprise adoption of these team collaboration services like Slack or possibly Teams are generally through without any IT approval. And if this team collaboration elements could be embedded into the procurement cycle, then shadow IT will easily be eliminated from the enterprise IT owners. When it comes to motivations for service providers, one big thing is end customer demand, obviously, because as we surveyed our service providers, we saw that team collaboration was one of the key trends that enterprises expect from the service providers. Another one is increased ARPU. However, one thing service providers should be very careful about this ARPU piece is that team collaboration itself is generally not enough or not meant to increase ARPU, but instead it's meant to be the pane of glass where other value-added services or any kind of cloud PBX, UCaaS, or contact center service is embedded behind it. And it improves stickiness and reduces churn, because it becomes much harder to replace those services with respect to a classic hosted VoIP. And if you think about it, the typical VoIP services are becoming almost obsolete, and it's very easy to switch between providers today. Of course, the portfolio differentiation is a huge piece, as service provider portfolios are becoming increasingly similar. With the OTT threads coming into the telco space further, this gives service providers to differentiate both from the OTTs and from the carrier competitors as well. Next slide, please. We just talk about why service providers are launching these services, so we can skip the slide as well. Okay, so there are multiple studies on why team collaboration services are boosting productivity, or why you should procure team collaboration services from a certain vendor. But a sample key study of quite a few people from Statista shows that 80% of the adopters of team collaboration have sorry, 91% of the team collaboration adopters, and in this case it's Slack, have experienced an increase in their productivity. And the highest number here was 30% increase, average of 30% increase of the 32% respondents. So if an enterprise was to deploy a team collaboration tool, there's at least a 91% chance that their productivity will get a significant boost. Next slide, please. When it comes to our interviews with service providers, what we have seen is that if you look at the left side, service providers see that importance of team collaboration has been increasing, and this response is given by at least 60% of the respondents. 40% of the service providers have said that the importance of team collaboration remains the same, but this does actually mean that service providers actually see the importance of team collaboration services. The year prior, there were actually some service providers showing decrease in the team collaboration importance. So it seems like service providers have now understood the key, why the team collaboration is key in their portfolios. And if you look at their plans of launching team collaboration services to customers, it's very promising. However, what similar to the first slide that we just mentioned, there could be some question marks about how people see team collaboration and what exactly is team collaboration, but definitely the trend toward team collaboration is realized. Next slide, please. When it comes to team collaboration vendor landscape, or in other words, which vendors service providers could look at in partnering and launching team collaboration offerings, we came up with a matrix on how we rank their friendliness and collaboration focus. So it's all over the place. All of these vendors have their own strengths and weaknesses, either from a product perspective or from a service provider friendliness and mature program perspective. But a distinct example would be Mitel, who allows service providers to host team collaboration. Or on the other hand, Microsoft has increasingly been losing the service provider friendliness and preferring to go direct here. Go ahead, Dom.
I think one of the interesting things that's come out over the last couple of years, and one of the reasons why we've been focusing on this, is you've seen providers like Microsoft and Cisco over the last 12 months put a huge focus on team collaboration and how they're going to offer those services in the future. Both have put Teams at the forefront of their enterprise communication portfolio, and it's been really interesting to look at the other providers of how they're trying to catch up with it. We did see obviously earlier this week that 8x8 launched their own team collaboration solution as well, which was they had their same rooms acquisition from a couple of years ago, allowed interoperability between different platforms. And I think that's one of the key difficulties and key findings here, is that interoperability pieces. You could have an enterprise working on multiple different platforms here. So you could go into one and half the team are using Slack and some are using Microsoft, some are using Facebook for work. One thing we didn't put on here was WhatsApp, which has been a key collaboration tool in some extent. But as you look inside organizations, and everyone's using WhatsApp to communicate. So it's really interesting looking at this environment and seeing where the focus is coming from and what it's going to be looking like in the future. I think one of the things that I found interesting, Faisal, was looking at it and going, okay, you've got along the bottom there, those Slack and Workplace by Facebook. Both of those companies aren't service provider friendly or service provider focused, and really come from a different direction to be trying to add team collaboration. Whereas you look at all the other vendors in there, like Mitel, Unify, Alcatel, Counterpath, a lot more service provider friendly, but not as much team collaboration focused. Whereas you move up a little bit further into those selling directly to enterprises like RingCentral, like Microsoft, like Cisco, and like Fuse, really moving into that space there. So yeah, I think it's been a really fascinating look at this.
Yep, and when you say that Workplace by Facebook and Slack are increasingly direct, I think there's also a potential for service providers to find a way to partner with those players and essentially differentiate themselves in the marketplace, being the unique player who's able to offer some sort of a portfolio utilizing these services. And as you said, WhatsApp has been a key player. There has been multiple companies like 8x8 recently launching the services. Everyone is trying to grab a pie of this market, and there are multiple choices for service providers that all of these players are coming from different angles, different strengths to be utilized moving forward.
Yeah. We just had a question through from Dave Farrell there, looking at what does the news about Teams integration using SBCs impact on this research? I think that's more a question around Microsoft's strategy rather than Teams and team collaboration. But I think it's, from my point of view, I think Microsoft have been fairly closed ecosystem but realize that they want to push teams and want to get teams out there. But for many of these cases, bringing your own SBC and being able to add your own minutes in the background is going to be a key way to be able to get into some of these enterprises. So I think that's going to help those providers offering SIP trunks out the back end of Microsoft and SBCs on the back to do that. But I think in Microsoft case, they are winning a huge amount of this marketplace. We've spoken to a number of service providers who are saying in the large enterprise space, it's being able to do something with Microsoft is one of the key things that they want off the back of it. So it's on every RFP, are you integrated with Microsoft? So for a number of service providers starting, especially large enterprises, having a Microsoft integration, and that is typically through Teams now, is something that you're going to have to do. So being able to bring your own SBCs and add some value on top of that, add your network through that as well, I think that's going to be fairly valuable. But yeah, I think for smaller providers as well, you've got to really look at, do you really want to work with Microsoft in the long run? Is that going to be valuable for you as a business? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Fazal?
We have a dedicated section on Microsoft in the white paper, and even in the service provider concerns, which you'll talk about the topics. We have a number of questions on how you should tackle the opportunity with Microsoft. But as you mentioned, the Microsoft relationship from a service provider angle requires a significant deep dive on, hey, is our resources worth in partnering with Microsoft? Can we differentiate with value-added services, or are we just going to be left with SIP trunking revenue or voice revenue? So there's a fine line between how you treat Microsoft, either as a competitor or a partner, and the SPC piece, that the ability to bring voice into the Teams ecosystem is a huge news from Microsoft. And as expected, Microsoft will be one of the largest players in the marketplace, but I think it's very important to evaluate your own market, your own customers, and who you can sell to. If your current or prospect markets is within the smaller enterprises, it's a different game. If it's in the larger enterprises, it's a different game.
I think for Teams, what's interesting is they got, I think, 220 million Office 365 users who all now have access to Teams.
Yep.
So when you're offering a Teams solution, you've got to really work out what's your value add on top of that. Why are you offering Teams when every Microsoft user can get it for free? And I think it's around that integration piece into the UC stack as well, and offering that full collaborator piece for internal and external communication.
But also it's being able to with your value-added solutions and Microsoft Teams ecosystem, being able to compete with other solutions in the marketplace, like the WebEx, like RingCentrals, and other players.
Great. So I think we'll move on to the next slide. So in terms of what we're going to get out of the report, and if you're looking at purchasing the report, please get in touch. But what we're going to run through in the report is the definition of team collaboration, sort of the key features, classification of the services, so really looking at what you can offer as a team collaboration service. Then looking at sort of some of the key factors to evaluate. So why should you be looking at offering these services? And we'll dive into some of those examples for motivations for offering it for the service provider and to the end customer. We're providing some go-to-market examples. So where service providers have been successful, looking at why they've been successful, looking at who they've worked with and why that's gone the way it has. And then one of the sections which a lot of people look at our reports for is that vendor analysis and evaluation. So looking through all those vendors, what our views are on them, what they look like as partners, how you can work with them and move forward in the future. We obviously then look at our predictions for the market in the future. So where do we see the market going from an analyst point of view, from talking to the vendors, talking to the service providers? How do we think this market's going to be evolving? And then we look at the last bit, which is that service provider concerns. What should you be concerned about? What should you be really thinking about when launching the services on top of that? and that's where it's what you get out of the report. The report is available. Please let me know if you'd like be interested in that, or speaking to us further about this and talking through your team in further detail. With that, I'd like to thank Fazil for his help on this and his work with us, and thank you all for attending this seminar. I hope to see you all in Paris on the 6th or in Madrid on the 8th. Please let me know if you'd like details for that. With that, thank you all very much. And if anyone's got any questions, please let me know.